Welcome back to the Bizarre Bureau, where we peel back the layers of the unexplained. Look up at the night sky. Beyond the moon, past the International Space Station, a dark, silent object is said to be tumbling through the void. It's not ours. We didn't launch it. So, where did it come from? This is the story of the Black Knight satellite, a mystery that could rewrite everything we know about our place in the universe. Is there an ancient probe orbiting our planet, watching humanity evolve? Let's find out. The legend of the Black Knight begins long before the space race, even before we had the technology to put anything into orbit. Whispers of its existence trace back to 1899. Nikola Tesla, the brilliant but eccentric inventor, was in his Colorado Springs laboratory experimenting with wireless power transmission. Suddenly, his sensitive equipment picked up a series of strange rhythmic signals. They were too regular to be natural interference, too structured to be random noise. Tesla was convinced they were not from Earth. He speculated they could be a message from Mars or another world entirely. Could this have been the first time humanity unknowingly heard the Black Knight? At the time, his claims were dismissed by many as the ramblings of a genius on the edge. But was he really just hearing static? Or was he the first to listen in on a silent, ancient watcher? The story goes quiet for decades, only to resurface with a bang in the 1950s, the dawn of the space age. In 1954, newspapers, including the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the San Francisco Examiner, published sensational stories quoting a retired naval aviation major and UFO researcher named Donald Keyhoe. Keyhoe claimed that the U.S. Air Force had detected not one, but two unidentified satellites orbiting Earth. This was a bombshell. Remember, this was 3 years before the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first man-made satellite. If Keyhoe's claims were true, who built these objects? How did they get there? The Pentagon publicly denied the reports, but the seed of a conspiracy was planted. The idea of an unknown sentinel in the sky captured the public imagination. Then in 1960, the mystery deepened. Both the United States and the Soviet Union had satellites in orbit. But Time magazine reported that the U.S. Navy had detected a dark, tumbling object in a strange, near-polar orbit, an orbit that neither nation had used at the time. It was estimated to be about 10 metric tons, far heavier than anything launched back then. It was dubbed the Black Knight by some, a name that stuck. The object seemed to be playing a cosmic game of hide-and-seek, appearing and disappearing from tracking screens. The official explanation was that it was likely the casing from a Discoverer series satellite that had gone astray. But for believers, this was flimsy. A polar orbit is difficult to achieve, and for it to happen by accident seemed incredibly unlikely. Was this the same object Tesla had detected? Was it the proof Keyhoe had been talking about? The most compelling and controversial piece of evidence came in 1998 during the STS-88 mission, the very first space shuttle flight to the International Space Station. As astronauts aboard the shuttle Endeavour worked to assemble the station, they took a series of stunning photographs. Among them were images of a strange, dark, and angular object floating against the backdrop of Earth. To many, this was it, the first clear picture of the Black Knight satellite. The object looked like no known satellite component. It was irregularly shaped, almost like a piece of spaceborne abstract art. NASA identified the object as a thermal blanket that had been accidentally lost by an astronaut during an EVA, or extravehicular activity. A simple, mundane explanation for a truly extraordinary image. But is it the right one? Let's examine the evidence critically. Could a simple thermal blanket really be the source of a legend spanning a century? Proponents of the Black Knight theory argue that the shape doesn't perfectly match a thermal blanket. They point out its complex structure and the way it seems to hold its form in the vacuum of space. Furthermore, they ask, what about all the other sightings and signals? The Tesla signals, the 1950s Phantom satellites, the 1960 Polar Orbiter. Are these all just a series of unrelated coincidences and misidentifications that have been woven together into a modern myth? Or do they point to something more? Skeptics, on the other hand, have a clear and rational explanation for each piece of the puzzle. The signals Tesla detected in 1899? Modern science suggests he was likely picking up radio waves from distant pulsars, which weren't discovered until 1967. These celestial bodies emit regular pulses, which could easily be mistaken for an intelligent signal. The 1954 reports? Skeptics say researcher Donald Kehoe was likely promoting his new book on UFOs and may have misinterpreted natural atmospheric phenomena or secret military tests. And the 1960 object in polar orbit? That was later confirmed to be debris from the Discoverer 8 satellite launch in 1959. Each piece of the legend seems to have a down-to-earth explanation. So, where does that leave us? The most famous photo, the STS-88 image, is almost certainly a thermal blanket. Astronaut Jerry Ross, who was on that mission, has confirmed it himself. He should know. He's the one who was working with it when it floated away. So the face of the Black Knight is just space junk. But the legend is more than just one photo. It's a tapestry of anomalies. The core of the Black Knight story is the idea that we have been observed for a very, very long time. Let's indulge in the theory for a moment. If the Black Knight is real, what could it be? One of the most popular theories claims it's an extraterrestrial probe placed in orbit thousands of years ago to monitor the development of life, and specifically humanity on Earth. Some have even tried to link it to ancient astronaut theories, suggesting it as a relic from the same beings who supposedly visited our ancestors and were recorded as gods. The legend claims the satellite is 13,000 years old, a number that seems to have originated from a Scottish author and astronomer named Duncan Lunan in the 1970s. He analyzed long-delay radio echoes and believed he had deciphered a star map hidden within them, pointing to the star Epsilon Botis as the probe's origin and dating it to 13,000 years ago. Lunan himself later retracted his theory, admitting his methods were unscientific and the conclusion was wrong. Yet, the 13,000-year number has become an inseparable part of the Black Knight mythos. So, we have a collection of misidentified radio signals, sensationalized newspaper articles, confirmed satellite debris, and a lost thermal blanket, all tied together by a retracted academic theory. When you lay it all out, the case for the Black Knight satellite seems to crumble under scientific scrutiny. It appears to be a classic example of how disconnected events can be woven together over time to create a compelling but ultimately fictional narrative. We want to believe there's something more out there, a grand mystery unfolding above our heads. And sometimes, we connect dots that aren't really there. But isn't that the fun of it? The Black Knight story persists not because of hard evidence, but because it speaks to a deep human desire. The desire to not be alone in the universe. The idea of a silent, ancient guardian watching over us is both terrifying and strangely comforting. It elevates our story, making us part of a grander cosmic drama. Whether it's a 13,000-year-old alien probe or a collection of space junk and human error, the Black Knight satellite forces us to look up and wonder. It reminds us that the universe is vast, and while we have unraveled many of its secrets, there are still shadows in the dark where mysteries can thrive. The truth, as they say, is out there. But in this case, the truth might just be that we created the most fascinating ghost story of the space age. What do you think? Is the Black Knight a real alien artifact? Or is it one of the greatest conspiracy theories ever told? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you for joining me at the Bizarre Bureau. If you enjoy exploring the world's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. We'll see you in the next investigation.